Before we start, I want to take a minute to talk about our friends at Bitwise. Bitwise has a lot to offer to people like us who live and breathe crypto every single day. They're a crypto asset manager with $10 billion in client assets and a team of more than 100 people across the US and Europe. They've got the world's largest crypto index fund, a wide range of crypto ETFs, on-chain solutions, you name it. They also manage private alpha strategies, have SMAs for large investors, and are one of the largest institutional Ethereum staking providers. And by the way, they've been doing it all since 2017. These guys are pretty much OGs. So check out Bitwise, go to bitwiseinvestments.com and see all they've got to offer. That's bitwiseinvestments.com, or just email james@bitwiseinvestments.com and let them know that Rekt brought you over. There are a million ways to access crypto. Do it with those who are all in on crypto, who care about the ecosystem, who live and breathe crypto every day. Look for Bitwise at bitwiseinvestments.com. And of course, always carefully consider the extreme risks associated with crypto. Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Rekt Vision. Mando is unfortunately away this week, but we do have probably the best possible replacement, which is Raoul Pal himself. Raoul, welcome back to Rekt Vision. Your usual resurfacing once we're approaching all-time highs is your track record continues, I think.
I know, but we don't. It's not like we plan this in advance. It kind of happens. So I'm the lucky mascot, I think.
Yeah, I think you are actually. I think you are. So hopefully this is more of a common occurrence as we trend higher here. But we'll see what happens.
I'm always willing to come on. Just don't get booked enough.
We'll see what happens in weeks to come. Before we start, I just want to shout out our affiliate partner, Arch Public. Take the emotions out of your trading with algorithmic trading. If you guys want, you can register for their free tier on realvision.com/arch. If you guys want to ask us questions throughout the show, feel free to ask us in the live chat. We will do the usual 15 minutes at the end of the show to run through the questions. And before we start and before we talk about markets, Raoul, I know there are some big changes coming to Real Vision. Do you want to spend a couple of minutes talking about them?
Yeah, I mean, I put a town hall out yesterday on Real Vision. We've taken a lot of feedback as we're building out the future of Real Vision in what it looks like. And what we've realized is that the current tier structure with the Plus and Pro probably are out of date versus people's needs. And as the platform starts scaling towards a lot more user-generated ideas, the trade competitions, research notes, all of that, and people want to connect with each other because what we've built is the kind of premium community for finance and crypto, we've decided to change how the tiers work and simplify it. So those people who are Real Vision Pro Macro and Pro Crypto subscribers, we've kind of pioneered the idea that macro and crypto are the same thing. And so we're actually merging those two tiers into one. So it's an all singing, all dancing Pro tier. So that's me and Julian Battelle from GMI, Andreas from Steno Research, and Jamie Coots from Real Vision itself, putting it all together. So you're going to get the full 360-degree view over everything. And within that, what makes it different is we've given people access to us, and now we bring people on stage to ask questions. We get to know everybody as a community, so we can act as people's mentors. So it really adds value to people because you get your questions asked, not just in a chat, but one-on-one with us. And I think that helps a lot of people. The feedback's been amazing when we've done that. In the Plus tier, that's been renamed Alpha. And really what that's to do is give people the extra tools and understanding that they need. So that includes the MIT macro investing tool that people love that Julian Battelle and myself put together. In addition, Jamie's building crypto dashboards so we can understand the space, the on-chain, the off-chain stuff, and then drill down into sectors. He's built out sector analysis. That's coming. I think Andreas is going to have some business cycle dashboards coming. So that's going to give people the understanding of really how to apply stuff. And then we're building a new tier out, which is Real Vision Connect, which is where people get access to the trade ideas, stuff like that. And that's the kind of entry tier. There's the free tier still. But the entry tier is, the world has changed. It used to be when we all started OV, even though you're a lot younger than me, it was all about education first, right? It was like, how do you educate yourself? How do you learn what economic side, everything else. It's flipped on its head. It's now show me the fucking trade. I'll figure it out. I'll lose some money. I'll make some money, and then I'll try and figure out. And we realize that the world has changed that way. And so RV Connect is to get you to the ideas, all of that stuff first, and then you can move up the knowledge curve as you get confidence. We're also rebuilding our entire platform, which will be out probably the end of June, which is all going to be based around community interactions, trade ideas, and it'll be a whole different look and feel, but it will really empower people. There's going to be an AI layer as well that's going to help disseminate all the information held within the network. There's a lot coming. There'll be a big announcement about what we're doing with blockchain as well, because we've got a partner that we're doing something pretty big with as well. So lots happening in the Real Vision tiers. So anybody who's on Real Vision, you'll get an email on Monday saying how it affects you. But basically the idea is to massively add value to everybody, and to create an experience that gets you to the idea faster, and then gets you to the knowledge and eventually the access to me and Julian and everybody else.
I often get asked on Twitter and just in general, like what resources I use to keep up with the market or just read about stuff. And I'm not a big reader. I'll be the first hand to admit, I'm definitely not a big reader or a big watcher of anything really. I just like to get a snapshot of something quickly and then move on. But the content from Real Vision is the only thing that I actually do read. And I have to say, like, when I left Barclays, you kind of lose all your research resources, right? Like you lose your Bloomberg terminal, you lose your desk analyst, you lose your publishing research house. And I think for me, this is the closest thing, and probably, to be honest with you, better than some of the resources I had at Barclays, because I think the content put out is by people who take risk and by people who put on trades, right? It's not just like, hey, here's Goldman Sachs' new S&P 500 update, which has changed based on things that have happened in the past, which is doing no one a favor. So it's that the only, and that's coming from someone who doesn't like consume a lot of this information. It's the only thing that I actually read and listen to that I found as something that has predictive quality within markets. And, you know, well, I guess it's just a good segue into what's going on and stuff. But also, yet again, it's worked.
I don't read other people's research because, you know, I write GM and I wanted to be unique, but I do watch stuff on Real Vision because the quality of thinking is really high. And so it just gives you different perspectives. And I'm not plugging it because it's Real Vision. It's just because it's a fucking great platform and the community is amazing that you just get to learn a lot. So I even flick through all the trade ideas all the time. What are people noticing? I mean, there's some people like nail trades well before anybody else. And that's really helpful because on X, there's so much noise. So trying to find signal is actually hard. And it's exhausting as well. Being on X is exhausting. But on Real Vision, it seems to be much easier to get a bit of signal as opposed to noise. And, you know, stuff like what Julian and I did with MIT, I think has really helped people. It's just like, here's how the business cycle works. Calm down, everybody. It should all be fine.
So first question I have for you leading on from that is the global money supply chart. Has it done it again? Has it once again done the same thing? And is everyone who doubts it left scratching their heads thinking, surely not again? And lo and behold, it's happened.
It was that easy. And it's, I mean, it was that easy. And really what's funny to me is we've kind of proven that liquidity is 90% of the price movement of crypto and 97.5% of the NASDAQ. So it is the dominant macro factor, but people don't want to believe it. And because like global M2 leads by 3 months, what happened is in Q4, global liquidity was draining because the dollar went up and rates went up and etc. And so that has the knock-on effect in Q1. And then what everybody does is apply narrative in Q1. It's the tariffs, the world's fucked, we're going to the recession. It was nothing to do with that. It was just the liquidity. So it's kind of like, yeah, it was this easy. Now, what it will do, it will decouple at some point. And normally it decouples in the bull phase of the cycle and then the full bear phase, because that's when fear and greed take over. And like the FOMO part of it is when network adoption increases massively, and it starts breaking away from M2, which is why it only has a 90% correlation, not 100%. So I think we'll see that now. And it's just saying now is, if this continues to play out, it's just banana zone from now until July. And then we've had, if we've got to think 3 months in advance. So what we've had is the dollar correcting the last couple of weeks, rates correcting. So we should see the market correct in August.
Yeah.
And maybe it's as simple as that. And that would be very consistent with previous cycles as well.
It's a good point on the fear and greed thing, because I feel like this time around, very clearly, we had that point where the global M2 chart was signaling that Bitcoin would go a lot higher, but that seemed to happen right at the point where it was like peak fear and tariffs, and everyone thought the world was over. And actually, similarly, last time, when global liquidity actually started to fall, which I think was sometime in 2024, like
That's
around,
right.
like,
That was that
summer, right?
September period.
March.
It
Yeah,
was
exactly.
miserable, and it was the same
Exactly.
thing.
And it's the exact same thing. Like when the M2 chart started to drop, I think we were right at that like max greed point in spring of last year, I think it was. And no one's, oh, why would you ever sell any risk in your right mind right here, despite the global M2 chart, trending lower, and this time is different and all that. And it seemed that I never thought about it that way, but both times it seems to be like the fear and greed part of it is the thing that causes that lag, I guess, because people just don't have that propensity to add or to sell risk.
The other thing we found out that you'll find interesting is like everyone's scratching their head saying, why's gold been doing so well and crypto hasn't? And I thought, I know there's going to be a simple answer to this. It's not going to be some complex thing. And in the last GMI, I figured out that all gold does is follow financial conditions, which lead. So it's kind of real time, and then crypto follows with a 3-month lag. So it's like, oh, I get it now. So gold is just representing the fact that financial conditions, and we define financial conditions as the dollar, rates, and oil. Those are the kind of big daddies of it. Once they start moving, gold moves. So gold has been correcting somewhat because they've started to correct. And so gold is actually leading this because it just is real-time financial conditions, while Bitcoin and crypto and NASDAQ is just lagged by 3 months. It's as simple as that. I'm like, I can't believe it.
I was reading the post that Real Vision put out on Twitter the other day, and it was on April 7th, you guys shared the greatest alpha of the year. And since then, Bitcoin is up 40%, ETH is up 85%, Sol is up 87%, Sui is up 135%. And we're talking about, just a month ago, really, I guess 5 weeks, maybe 6, but it's a really short space of time. Now, looking at the chart, it looks like, if we just overlay it, it looks like it means that Bitcoin still has room to push beyond all-time highs through to 120, 130, 140K potentially through the summer. And you alluded to that being a view. There seems to be like a big part of crypto Twitter once again calling for a potential alt season and Bitcoin dominance falling. And we've maybe started to see signs of it. Bitcoin dominance is kind of off the highs and
I put out
rallying.
a tweet at the actual peak of Bitcoin dominance and said, I think dominance has peaked. I think it has. It's the right point in the cycle. It's this part in the banana zone when it happens. It usually happens after this first correction. So if that's right, and let's say Bitcoin goes from 100K to 150K for easy maths, then if you look at the performance of the other tokens, you can kind of impute what happens is that Sui probably does 3x that.
Yeah, exactly. So technically speaking, we haven't truly entered phase 2 of the banana zone yet. We've just picked up the banana again.
That's right. It'll be when Bitcoin breaks its new highs, which I think is probably next week, because we get to the top, we consolidate a bit, and then it goes, and then everything goes. And the banana zone really won't kick in the terms of the way that people think, where everybody's getting hilariously rich and all sorts of stuff, probably until Solana breaks all-time highs. Because that's people's biggest bag, really, is Solana. And that needs to happen. Then risk gets recycled out the curve, because people do simple maths, and everybody's going to do it. Oh, they start saying, okay, maybe Bitcoin goes to 300,000 this cycle, let's say. So therefore, it's got a 3x from here. And then they're like, oh, but Solana could do a 5x from here, and Sui could do a 10x from here. And before you know it, everybody rushes out the risk curve because it's later in the cycle and they want to capture as much gains as possible.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny. I was reading the first comment on this tweet when someone mentioned, interesting that the BTC dominance tops you mentioned were both bull market tops, but that's not actually the case, is it? Because when it topped in 2021, that, and that's when I'd entered crypto. That's right when we had this like insane move in alts, and I think dominance dropped all the way down to like towards 50 or 40%, even maybe. I want to say. I don't know if
That's right. I mean, let me have a
right there.
chart. I've got the chart somewhere here.
Yeah,
dominance
40% in summer 21 dropped 40%.
Yeah, exactly. So Bitcoin dominance, generally when it falls, it is the start of the silly season.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, obviously, I mean, by definition, it means that other tokens are outperforming Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin's going up, which we're still going up, then what we should see is that. So I think, we've had a little correction in Bitcoin dominance, went from 62 back to 63. It'll top out again and then move lower. And that next move, people will really start to see it. And I think that's the move when Bitcoin goes through all-time highs and everything else goes completely bananas.
I wonder if we can get a chart of this in 2021, because this...
Yeah, hold on, I can show it.
This decline in Bitcoin dominance from in the first half of 2021 is quite something to behold. I never really appreciated how steep that drop-off was. But...
If I go to the weekly chart, hold on.
Yeah, that's mental, isn't it? Look at that.
So here's the same kind of period in 2021. So it happened in Jan that time around.
Yeah.
That drop went from 70-something% down to, 38% in a few months.
That's crazy. Right,
that's alt season. We saw it here back in 2017, which I think is a very similar one. It started like in Feb 17. I mean, that went from 95 to 35.
Yeah.
What's interesting is Bitcoin dominance over time is falling. So the peaks are always less.
Lower highs.
The lows seem to be roughly equal, but it suggests to us that we should come somewhere back down here, and it happens fast. It happens in 2, 3, 4 months.
So what's your current construct on how you want to play the next 2 or 3 months, with the potential for we never really got an alt season last year, in my opinion, nothing to the extent of 2017 and 2021.
I mean, my bet has been, as you know, has been sweet, because it's outperformed everything.
Yeah.
It just keeps going up, correcting, going up, correcting, going up, correcting. So it does all the right things. It outperforms all of the time. And I don't see any reason why that's going to stop. I mean, people argue a lot about, low free float VC tokens. People don't understand a simple fact is that a low free float in a bull market goes up more. Yeah. Anybody who's ever traded emerging markets knows this. And that's what happens. And in a bear market, they get killed more. It's as simple as that, because you've got less available supply and a lot of demand, because there's a lot of attention on SUI and other things like this. And so it tends to work really, really well. It's also one of the factors why NFTs do well in bull markets, because there's a limited supply and a lot of attention drives to it. And so prices go stratospheric. It's a very similar construct. So that's my main bet now. It's pretty simple to me, because if I look at this is the Solana SUI chart. If I look at it on a weekly basis. So it broke out of this basing pattern. It flagged, consolidated. My guess is the next move breaks through all of this. And so that tells us that SUI is still the fastest horse in the race.
Yeah.
ETH, different question, because I think it can play catch up. But if we look at this, it just looks like it's flagging here again. And the next move is, again, the move where we should see a dramatic outperformance of SUI versus SOL. And I really simplify everything, because if we've got one dominant factor, and the dominant factor being liquidity, therefore everything is correlated. So therefore, just do one chart against the other and choose the strongest asset without going too far out the risk curve. Because sure, we can go to memes and stuff, but it becomes a harder game to play.
Yeah, I think once you dip down that far down the risk curve, I'm sure the total meme market cap is going to go a lot higher. But what you're not betting on is that. You're betting on what the construct of that is. And that's where I think people trip up, where it's not like you can buy any single meme coin and it will go up. You have to kind of buy the right ones. And the right ones often change. I think the composition of that index changes. In this current environment, changes it feels like it changes on like a weekly or even daily basis. So it's hard, I think. I think it's much harder to play that game now. We spoke a lot about meme coins in 2023, and there were probably just like a handful of coins then, but there are so many now. It's much harder for me to advocate playing for that game on like a low touch portfolio level, I think. And I find it, apart from, I guess, maybe the big stuff like Doge and Pepe, etc., it's hard. I find it hard to find things that I can hold and just forget about or underwrite.
Yeah, yeah, exactly right. I tell you, there's another chart. Arthur, you could bring up this one. Yeah, I know you guys mentioned it last week. Is that XRP chart is something to behold?
Yeah,
It really is. I mean, none of us have really been involved in XRP, but that chart is something to behold. It's like that's going to another big leg higher at some point. And that obviously helps the Bitcoin dominance chart. The other one, which I think is the best chart in the world, is I don't know if I've got it on this one, is Doge Bitcoin. I've got the Doge chart, but Doge Bitcoin looks like it's going to continue. And Doge Bitcoin would suggest that it's going to outperform Bitcoin again, in which case it'll have been the hardest asset in the world.
yeah, yeah. I
Which
see
is the
that.
funniest outcome. But Doge itself, if I put this
That
to
looks like a
the,
full sort of breakout mode, doesn't it? This chart
yeah,
here.
yeah, if I go to the monthly chart, I mean, it kind of can't be better than this chart.
Yeah,
It just does the same thing every time. Consolidates, does nothing, alt season every time.
yeah.
And so this looks like a rocket. And before you know it, Doge is somewhere up here. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's a very interesting chart, I think.
it really is. And it's the same as XRP, essentially. So it's telling you that's the retail participation. They come on, look down the top 10, 15 tokens, what looks cheap
What's
in price,
Yeah, what's not Bitcoin exactly?
what's not Bitcoin, what's cheap in price, have I heard about it? Go for it.
So, what do you think? Mando and I have spoken a lot about ETH in the last few weeks, and it's usually gone with me saying, "Is ETH cheap here?" and Mando saying, don't touch it, don't touch it." Until last week, and he had a good call on it. He finally came around to actually owning some ETH. What do you think in terms of ETH versus other alts like perhaps Solana, perhaps Sui, but also ETH BTC? I mean, I can tell we can say ETH BTC because it fits into the alt season thesis, and I presume that you also think that's going to go higher. But what about its performance versus other altcoins? Like it's been a huge laggard over what feels like almost 2 years now, or whatever it is. Is that Would that be in your basket of altcoins that you would potentially play?
I mean, I have all of my ETH exposure um, via NFTs. So I've got the beta on top. But if
Yeah,
I let me see if I can find the chart I'm looking for. 1 second, I'll share it. The long-term chart of ETH is a thing of beauty. I've never kind of lost the faith in ETH. I just haven't invested in it much, except by the longer term thing. I mean, I think the entire financial system builds on ETH. I think
yeah.
there's no other chain that they will build on top of to the depth that they will here. But this chart, I'll get rid of all this DMARC indicator stuff that nobody understands except me. No, I can't.
I
For
definitely do not understand.
some reason, I can't get rid of it. But basically, this is a flag pattern. When this goes, ETH has its next move up, wherever it goes to.
Yeah,
That's a shocking chart if this plays out, because it will change everybody's narrative again about ETH. I still think ETH from here, could it outperform Solana? It's possible. It's possible. Just because what I think is coming is as the financial system comes, you don't get fired for building on ETH. My idea is ETH is Microsoft. I've never been to a bank, an insurance company, a large corporate that has Apple Macs. It's all on Microsoft. Why? Because it's an operating system that everybody can use, and you can hire people, fire people, bring in new people, and they don't have to learn something new. But if you were to build the entire financial system on SUI, everyone has to learn a move language. There's less number of developers. It's not had the Lindy effects that ETH has. Now, also the banks love a layer two because they feel like they've got control over certain things, but it still has the finality of settlement to the layer one. So I think ETH is probably going to shock people going forwards. But, XRP looks like it will too, and so does Doge. So it's kind of like everything's correlated.
Yeah.
But if we can break that high, if we can break that, let's say 4,300 high, it's going to really explode.
Yeah. I guess it doesn't have, when you look through the top 10 coins, etc., it doesn't have that low unit bias that I think, I don't know how truly important that is. Maybe it's something we shouldn't underestimate, because I do
maybe
think
there's two different users, right?
yeah,
maybe this is driven by activity. Because I went and asked Grok and ChatGPT about the usage of blockchains, and ETH is so dominant by almost every metric.
Yeah.
And people forget that. On-chain activity has been less in terms of number of transactions because of the throughput, etc., even if you include all the layer twos. But by every other metric, it just dwarfs everything else. In fact, it's larger than all the others put together for most things. So people forget this because we're a very fickle bunch in this space. But the reality is don't fade it.
So let's talk about NFTs then, because I know you've been slowly accumulating a very handsome portfolio of NFTs over the last couple of years now, and things, at least quality assets, at least have moved off the lows, and I think there's been a lot of two-sided trading and stuff like X copies and Beeples and on-chain, Derivatives, etc. Do you think we see? I have no doubt that stuff will continue to appreciate in value, and I think generally speaking, most people agree with that thesis. It's just people are trying to outperform that and try and roll it back in, whatever it is. But do you think we will have another NFT season, so to speak, and will that occur on Ethereum, or is that likely to happen perhaps on Sui or something else?
I think we do have an NFT season.
Yeah.
Somewhat different than the last. I think what we're seeing is a current bifurcation. One is Web3 consumer-based brands being built. And we'll talk about what you guys are doing.
Yep.
But that's Doodles, Pudgy Penguins, all of that, right? And that still seems to be capturing mind share. Then we've got the art side, which seems to be doing well. Then we've got the PFP side, which there are a few projects that will survive. And Punks, going to the hands of Mickey Malko, is a good friend of mine, is amazing news. I managed to get the head of the Sui Foundation over drinks one night in Dubai at 11 o'clock at night to get a punk. I said, the reality is you cannot be in the space and having been reasonably successful without owning a punk, right? It's like it's a rite of passage. Yeah. And so, I think punks probably get to a floor price of $500,000 this cycle, just because there's a lot of OGs who haven't yet bought them.
Yeah.
I was speaking to a bunch in Dubai, really well-known people. They don't have them yet. I'm like, how can you? I mean, I've been speaking to Vlad Tenev from Robinhood. In fact, the last question of my interview with Vlad, because I've been talking to him privately, is like, when are you buying this fucking punk? You can't be in the space and pretend you're in crypto without a punk. And then, what is the spillover effect from that? I know we've talked about this in the past. I think crypto dick butts is another one. You're either an OG and understand it, or you don't. And there's only 5,600 of them there. They're 1 ETH, 1 ETH 25. I just do not see a world that these are not 10 ETH, because they're so important to the space. Because you kind of know, right? Everybody's got a dick butt. You're like, yeah, you get this space. It's like a mini punk.
Yeah.
So I do think we'll see PFP projects maintaining value, certain ones that have Lindy effects. And I think that's good too. I think what Xcopy has done is so amazing, because he's got such a broad spread of assets that people can buy, from Max Payne and Friends as a PFP, which is cheap, through to the one of ones, and people can participate throughout his ecosystem. So I do think the art stuff continues as well. So, and then we're going to see somebody do something breakout, which is somewhere between I still think a hybrid idea behind memes and what NFTs actually use as technology. People aren't using NFT technology much yet. They're just using it still for pictures, but there's a lot I think will happen. So I think the NFT space is going to get interesting. And I think some of it will be on Solana. We've seen a bunch of stuff migrate across to Sui as well, because they're faster throughput, so they're more like memes in that way. But we'll also see stuff accrue on ETH. So I think it's a broad mix.
It's hard to
What do you
know.
think about NFT? What do you think about NFTs? Are you even looking at them anymore?
Yeah, I mean,
I
I sold some NFTs to buy liquid stuff back in April, which was a good trade. And I've now monetized some of that, and I'm looking to reacquire some NFTs. But the thing that I'm trying to figure out for me personally is, should I be running the liquid stuff a bit longer to capture a bit more return there?
That is the hard battle, right?
That's the battle.
Showing these great X copies. I'm like, I have to part with my Sui to do it.
Exactly.
And then the problem is by the time Sui's at 10, these fucking things have gone up as well. It's like, it's really hard to know how to do this.
It's hard to know what to do. And so I'm in two minds. Like, I own one punk. I think I would like to purchase another punk, because I think if you're going to bet on this space, that is just it's the Bitcoin of NFTs, right? That's the one thing that will definitely go up. Will it be the best performer? Perhaps not, but it's a safe bet. And for me, with NFTs, I think I have to buy something that I at least feel some sort of sentimental attachment to. Otherwise, because then worst case scenario is like, cool, I had this cool collectible, I had this cool picture. But the worst thing is when you buy, I mean, I remember I got FOMO'd into buying a founder crypto kitty in 2021. And I have no connection with it at all. It's just, yeah, sure, like it's an early 2017 NFT, and man, don't I actually still own it, but I hate to see it in our wallet, because it's like, I just hate this thing. I'll never display it. I'll never
Here's something
post about it.
Run by you. So using how we view markets, it's like the knock-on effects, the macro implications. If I look through what's just happened, Mickey's bought and put into a foundation punks. Yuga's just been given the cash from that, and our friend Sergio had bought bits off them. So what it's telling me is the Yuga guys are going to be ultra concentrated on getting Bored Ape right.
Yeah.
Bored Ape is like the redheaded stepchild of all of this right now. And I just have a feeling that the next leg they will participate, because they're going to deliver something outside of, I don't care about the other side stuff. What I actually care about with Bored Apes is that bloody Miami clubhouse.
Yes.
We want somewhere that we can call our own. And we're all in Miami now and then. And maybe there ends up being one in New York and one in Hong Kong or whatever. That would be amazing. Because if you think of the kind of people that will be around that space, they're interesting people. People have made some money. People are doing interesting projects. The partnerships and opportunities. I think people are sleeping on Bored Ape. I still own mine, which I vastly overpaid for. But if I were to do anything today, if I wasn't worried about Sui outperforming everything, I would actually buy a bunch of apes. Eight big butts would be my two things that I think, you know what, they could outperform punks.
It's a good point, because they've divested that Legends of Mara thing they have. They've divested their heavy metal thing they have. They've divested bits. They've now just divested punk. So it just does really leave them with apes and other side, I guess. And other side, I'm actually quite constructive on. I think that can be quite big, because when they do these sessions on them, they have like thousands of people turn up and actually play this thing. And I mean, I'm not a gamer myself, but I've long believed like it's interoperable currency with games and crypto. Like that's just something that makes sense. And I was kind of betting on these guys to crack that puzzle a couple of years ago, which maybe didn't happen because of all the other things they did. So that I do think is interesting, actually. But apes are now also, like a 12.5 ETH floor, so
they're very cheap. I also think what Sergio is doing with mini bits. I mean, I have faith in Sergio. He's one of the nicest people we all know. He's also very passionate about it. And just seeing what he's just done with me bits, being able to use in a game as a character, and then having add-ons like a backpack. There's like a Banana Zone backpack and all of this stuff. I'm like, okay, he's moving fast and doing the right things. And memes are they have a place in the folklore. So that's another project that's probably still well underpriced. I think is interesting.
Yeah, so Meebits are at 0.7 ETH,
Yeah,
which is pretty obtainable. You know, this is the other thing. Like people always say, well, I can't really afford a punk. What can I go out there and buy? And if punks move a lot higher, Meebits will move a lot higher. Like it's the
yeah,
beta to punks, you know what I mean? And
yeah. It's Meebits, apes, crypto dick butts probably are the ones that really
yeah,
benefit. They've all got folklore
yeah.
and they've got a reason to own them that drives a bit of passion, as you say. People care.
Do you think the NFT season happens as a result of alt season, as a result of Bitcoin dominance dropping, and we just see the same thing as we saw in 2021 play out? I feel like in 2021, part of the big NFT rally was because it felt new and everyone thought this thing is going to change the world. And, you know, you had the Beeple sale and everything, and it was this like hot new thing, whereas now it's not a new thing anymore. But does it fall into that?
So if we go back to the financial way of looking at it, if we think that that chart of ETH might play out, which it breaks through the 4,300 level and then accelerates to 10K and beyond, right? So let's say ETH can triple from here or more, because if Bitcoin dominance is falling, and we think Bitcoin could go to 250 or 300, whatever the number, you choose your number, then ETH should outperform it. Money in ETH gets recycled into the ETH economy. So therefore the NFTs, even if they double, let's say ETH goes up 4x. If NFTs double, you might get an 8x on your trade. Okay, yeah. That's kind of interesting. Now, if you've got something like Meebs or crypto dick butts that are 1 ETH, could they go to 5? Could they even go to 10 in a full, FOMO cycle? Yes. Okay, now you're talking some huge money. That's what people forget. And you and I have talked about this in the past. People forget about NFTs versus meme coins is NFTs have this multiplier effect.
Yeah.
They're a call option on that underlying chain.
Yeah. I mean, when you have that dream scenario of, let's say, ETH going a lot higher while the floor price also increases of the NFT, you have this levered effect without, the liquidation risk, if that makes sense, of stuff going a lot higher. I think that's how, to be honest with you, a lot of people made a lot of money in 2021.
That's right. That's why people made so much money out of NFTs was the multiplier.
Yeah. And you actually don't have the same effect with meme coins. Like, meme coins maybe move with some sorts of like beta to the market, but the way that the, NFT price moved alongside ETH and everything went up, that was like a pretty crazy time because your 2 or 3x trades ended up being like 20x or 30x trades, right? Like it was just, it was just like insane moves and everything. So
I think punks did something like 5,000x because of that.
Yeah, I mean, punks were like half an ETH or something when ETH was like 1,000 or something like that, and they went all the way to a 150 ETH floor when ETH was at 5K. So it was like the most insane move ever. Yeah. And all you had to do was just hold punks, and that was it. Like you just made
that was the trade of last cycle. That was the trade.
Punks and apes, and you just outperformed pretty much like everything in the entire market. So that's like kind of like the MicroStrategy trade, I guess. And
I just like what I've kind of raised this a lot on Twitter to try and see where the pulse is, and people hate NFTs. They don't understand them. They don't really get it, and that makes me very interested.
Yeah,
because there is a Lindy effect of what survived will survive and thrive. We know what the Lindy effect is. Like Xcopy is Lindy effect, Beeple is Lindy effect. A bunch of the generative art Lindy effect, and a bunch of these PFPs Lindy effects. So it's like I love that second cycle trade where they get jammed down, and you see what's got Lindy effect. Those things tend to wildly outperform.
Yeah, I do see that. Kind of making me feel like I need to have a bit more exposure to NFTs here.
How I've done it over to justify how is like my big macro thesis is this space is a $3 trillion space today. I think it goes to $100 trillion in 10 years. That's just standard network adoption extrapolated out on the log chart. That's 97 trillion of wealth. That's the largest, fastest accumulation of wealth in all recorded history. It's the same. It's more. It's like X, 3x more than all of the Russian billionaires, all the Chinese billionaires, all of Silicon Valley wealth, and all the Wall Street billionaires added together times 3 or something stupid, right? All happening within a short period. Let's assume I'm an idiot and it goes to 50 trillion, not 100. 47 trillion is still bigger than all of that wealth. And wealth gets recycled into art in the end. So if you speak to a friend of mine, Tad Smith, who used to run Sotheby's, Tad said the average billionaire has like 4 or 5 houses. Beyond that, you can't buy anything. So what happens is the value of the art in their houses is 10x the value of their house.
Yeah.
Because art is a store of value, it's exchangeable, it's transportable. It's actually a very, very good store of wealth. So I'm just thinking as a long-term bet, by 10 years, some of these X copies will have traded at $200 million.
Wow, it's a big bet. I hope you're right. We still
not mine because I don't have the one of ones, but we will see record prices in art in this space.
Yeah. I do think the last selfie piece that you have, I would say, is better than most of the one of ones, or at least half of the one of ones he has. I know it's a 1 of 10, but just an iconic piece. Like that one of those, I think, will be much higher. It probably is already higher than some of the one of ones right now, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and also because there's 10 of them, it's the same with Mortal as well. There's 10 of these, they're known as iconic. Having 10 means that prices get reset, as opposed to the Salvador Mundi, which will never trade again, right?
Yeah.
But there's no reset. But this, I think there's a competition because you can always, if you're rich enough, you can go to all 10 owners and put a stupid bid on, and you might get one. So I think you're right. That's Jedi Wolf, who's very involved in this space. His thesis as well is some of these collections will do better than the one of ones because you can actually create competition. And we saw that with the Warhol Marilyns.
Yeah.
We saw the same thing.
That's exactly right, because you need a lot of people talking about it to get it to its iconic status, right? So if you have 10 holders of 10 pieces, that's already kind of like a cabal in itself anyway, and that has networking effects. Whereas unless you have, even if you have 10 people owning one piece, it's not really the same, is it? It's not quite the same thing, I think. So I think for that reason, but also just in terms of the art itself, that piece is like, I would probably rather own that than the 2 one of ones we have, I think.
Which ones have you got?
So we have one that's called Rekt Guts, believe it or not, which is a one of one, which is very, very fitting. And then we have another one, which is a portrait of Hayden Adams, actually, which I think is an interesting one as well. So
yeah, I've got no one of ones of his at all, but I've been broadening out now because I've got so many bloody I've got 40 something X copies. I'm like, and I've got all of the Beeples, and I will get a Beeple one of one when I get around to it. But what I've been broadening out is further out into the art space, looking for interesting artists doing different stuff, and most of those are because I like them. Will I make money off them? I don't know.
Yeah.
And then some stuff, I'm doing it also to make money from. So
yeah, absolutely. So the last point on the NFT stuff is: do you think we see some of the stuff that we saw go crazy last time was stuff like Doodles, Proof, Moonbirds, kind of like the IP story stuff? And Doodles themselves actually launched a token recently, which didn't do that well. I think it's at something like a 40 or 50 million market cap. But that whole IP story was another big, I guess, use case or something that people kind of got attached to for NFT. Do you think we see a resurgence of that, or is it like a fool me once, fool me twice kind of story there?
We don't know, right? So there's a bunch of people experimenting with, yet again, token-based economies based around IP and stuff. You're doing it, you kind of backed into it the other way round. The others have done it the other way. Nobody's yet to get it right. But all of our thesis is somehow this should connect to an ecosystem in a way that works. So whether Doodles can pull it off, whether you guys pull it off, I don't know, but somebody's going to get there. We just don't know the mechanism to accrue value to the token. in a way that does it, whether it's via buybacks or whether it's via opportunity sets or loyalty points or whatever. We keep creating these token economies and they keep failing because there's an airdrop, people then just dump it. There's no real use for the token, and then it gets forgotten. So I don't even know why people do it most of the time, because the actual founding team don't retain much of it. The thing falls 90% afterwards.
And you have a liability.
What have you done? What have you done that's added any value? So
I just feel like people haven't really.
How are you thinking about it with Rekt? Talk everybody through what you guys are doing, because I think it's super interesting. And again, you're trying something new in building a brand that uses Web3 as its foundation, but it's not just Web3. It's a product that people, we hope, want.
I think top down, what Web3 allows you to do is build a brand or IP or a community in a very accelerated fashion. Because if you buy a drink from Coca-Cola or from Pepsi or whatever, you buy the drink, you drink it, and you maybe enjoy it, and then you move on. And that's kind of like your interaction with that company, right? Whereas if you buy a Rekt drink, you buy the drink, you drink it, hopefully you enjoy it, but then you are able to claim some Rekt coin, and then you suddenly become sort of like a stakeholder in what we're doing. And yes, the Rekt coin itself doesn't own any of the Rekt IP. It doesn't benefit from any of the revenues. It doesn't pay dividends. It doesn't get a profit share or anything like that. But what it does benefit from is appreciation through attention. So if Rekt brands and Rekt drinks does really well as a company, it will gain more attention, and the coin will probably go up. Like it's probably just going to go up based on.
But surely you're thinking through, how do you tie it into an ecosystem and loyalty system that generates two-way demand for the token?
Yeah, I think so. So I think for us, we've been using revenues from drink sales to purchase the token. So that's like it's not a completely defined mechanic, but it is something that creates an economic driver for the token price and token appreciation. So that I think is kind of completes the flywheel. It's like, okay, people are able to earn this. Revenues are generated from drinks, whether it's from people owning the token, whether it's from people just buying the drinks. I mean, like 60% of our sales, believe it or not, are actually from fiat people who haven't claimed rewards. So I don't know who out there is buying these drinks, but there's a lot of non-crypto people, and that is revenue into like the whole Rekt ecosystem, which goes to token buyback. So I think we've sort of created this kind of like flywheel thing, which works. And there are a lot of challenger brands out there in the world, and people feel attached to them and they want to be a part of it. But for 99% of people, they're not able to get into private investment rounds because they probably don't have the capital or the contacts, and their connection with that brand is just support from buying the product. And if the brand does really well, then maybe you have bragging rights by saying, oh yeah, like I was first to this brand. Remember this photo I took, 3 years ago, but that's all you really have. Whereas if you're earning what I believe is, you could say it's a meme coin. You could even perhaps go one step forward and call it a brand coin, which is what I like to think of it as. And you say, okay, now I actually have a stake in this thing where if these guys do kill it and I do really like the brand, the price of that goes up and you make money off it and you become an actual supporter and part of a different ecosystem. So I think like that concept hasn't really been explained to people properly, or people haven't really thought about it in that way. And I think part of the problem with lots of the NFT IP stuff is that they've been very extractive. Their business model is like, we will make money by selling you more NFTs, and eventually that stops working because your community turns into consumers, and they just turn into like your kind of like extraction target. So let's see how it goes. We've been pretty experimental on this whole thing, but
I love what you're doing, and I love that you're pushing it hard to try and do it, because somebody's going to get this right.
Yeah, somebody's going to get it right.
It's the same with the creator economy. It's the same with sports teams. It's the same with brands. Somebody's going to crack this, and the whole thing is going to fucking explode. Whether it's this cycle, we get the first look at it, then we get the Lindy effect, and then after that is the big one. But it's coming. I know it is. It's been part of my core thesis. So I love how you guys are experimenting. The Doodles one, does that work? I don't know, but they have. I mean, I caught up with Austin the other day. They have a lot of ideas of what they want to do to create true value from it. So it's not just a meme coin in itself. Meme
Yeah.
coins is okay. I don't have an issue with it. But really, if somebody can figure out how to make an economy, then we've got something big, really big.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I agree. Well, we have a few minutes left, so maybe I'll move on to some of the viewer questions and we can go through those.
Yeah.
So the first one is from Francisco. For the next 3 months, what are your off the cuff thoughts on a portfolio construction of 50% Sol, 20% Bitcoin, 10% Sol DeFi, 10% AI coins, 10% meme coins? So it's a pretty heavily weighted Solana portfolio.
Yeah, look, I don't think it does badly. I think Solana is like the main coin of this cycle. Will it outperform Sui? Unlikely. Could ETH outperform Solana? Maybe. But I don't think you go far wrong. Just be careful with that tail side of too much in AI and too much in stuff. When you know you've got kind of 30% in more speculative based stuff, I'd just be a little bit careful of that. If you don't want to fuck it up, I prefer to have, like 70, 80%, maybe more in just the core bet as opposed to going too far out the risk curve.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I'd have a bigger weight into the core bet.
Yeah.
Looking at this and
the Bitcoin bet is fine,
Yeah. Okay, next question. Raoul, I know you love Sui since the breakout of the Sui Sol chart, but looking at the chart, it looks like a double bottom with a higher low. Also, the institutional money will not be going to Sui, but are guaranteed to go into Sol because of the treasury buying. Any thoughts on that?
I just don't mid curve it. Just look at the chart. The chart looks like it number go up.
That's the best possible answer. But it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if number go up, it attracts more capital. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's big enough to matter, right? Because somebody will shill me some small thing. It's like, it's not big enough to matter. This is big enough to matter. It's like, it's got a whole fucking ex-Facebook team behind it. It's big enough.
Yeah. It's what my old boss used to tell me, don't talk yourself out of a good trade just for the sake of talking yourself out of a good trade, which is, I think...
Mid-curving it.
Yeah, I think that's right. No offense or disrespect to Aaron on that. So next question from Mustafa on YouTube. Can you give some advice for exit strategy this cycle to someone heavy in crypto assets? Have you thought about, I know you will never truly exit the markets, but have you thought about where you would be taking
I have, and I talk about this a lot, and it's down to everybody's preferences. You can't take, people should not rent my conviction, your conviction, our price targets, anything. What it's down to is at some point in the next few months, you should take lifestyle chips off the table. I know you've been a big proponent of this, OV.
Yep.
It's like at some point, if you can take a bunch off 25, 30%, then you kind of don't care what happens in the back end of the cycle. Don't try and nail the top, get out exactly, but take enough money out that it changes your life. I mean, it's life-changing money in this space. So whatever it is, take it off, and you will feel too early and you'll feel sick for doing it. I think you're always too early in doing this, OV, because I think it's scurred from the last time, because you started taking stuff off, but then you're like, that's it, I'm taking it off, and then you go back in again. I'm like, that's not what you said you were.
That's very true. That's very true.
But honestly, if I'm right that the market has another peak in July and then consolidates for a bit, use that late summer period when prices are higher, to just take it off permanently and do something that is accretive to your life.
I do agree. I think sometimes people get too stamped towards how do I maximize my profit? And if you're already up big, which I hope many people on the show, listening to the show are, because we've been very bullish for a long time. If you're up big, it gets to the point where it's like, okay, it's not necessarily about making that extra 10, 20, 30, or even extra 2x or 3x. It's like if you've made, my view is if you've made money that makes a difference to your standard of living or allows you to achieve some in real life goal that you want to achieve, you should absolutely sell it and do it, because yes, you might leave some on the table, but at the end of the day, the worst situation is that you round trip it and then you get nothing to show for it, basically.
I explain to people, if I go back to, I think it was 1999 or 2000, I was at Goldman. I was earning good money and I got a big bonus. And I was speaking to my dad. He said, what do you want to do? I'm like, I want to buy a house in Spain. And it so happened they had a friend selling a house in Spain, blah, blah, blah. And I went and bought it. It was a 6-bedroom house on a hillside. It was stupid cheap at the time. And I bought it in cash and renovated it. And I realized I'd won the entire game. I still had a mortgage on my flat in London, but I'd owned a house on a hillside in Spain. And if my world went to shit, I could work in a bar and live in that house amongst the olive groves and orange groves, 10 minutes to the beach. People don't realize how empowering that is. Once you own your own house, not as an investment, but as security and mental security to take risk from or do whatever you want, it's a game changer. And I just think it is worth more than the money itself by a long way.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I think we've got time for one more question. I think this is an interesting one, actually. This is from someone called Paris. How do I work for or enter this new digital age as a finance student instead of falling into investment banking? What would be your advice there?
All of my friends' kids this, because a lot of my friends' kids are all like at uni or just getting close to it.
Yeah.
The answer is it's not easy because there's not that many jobs. And there's a lot of startups, not enough mature businesses. Trying to get into the startup is hard. But there are some big companies being built. Coinbase being one of them, finance being another. The exchanges is probably a very good place to start. So I would opt for the exchanges, infrastructure companies like MoonPay, stuff like big stablecoin providers, just anywhere adjacent, asset management firms, the Galaxy Digitals, just anybody who actually employs a lot of people. Because if not, you're just going to be in and out of a job as the cycle comes, everybody blows up, does it. But keep persevering, be around on X, because that's where all the conversation happens. Add value, show that you're doing something. I mean, do you know that you must remember him? There was the guy called Mr. Fox. He used to be on Real Vision. He was like this young kid at school writing NFT stuff for us. And then he's at university now, really smart guy. But his side gig is broking high art at Fountain.
Wow.
So the big X copies and stuff. He's involved in doing that. And he came to me the other day, said, what should I do? Should I go to investment banking? I'm like, no. You've actually got a reputation. People read you on Twitter. They read your research and you're broking high art. You're in the middle of the system. Lean into it.
Yeah. So I agree with that. I think your advice on starting at a larger crypto firm, I guess somewhere that employs a lot of people, is a good one, because if you're doing 6-month stints at a load of different startups, you're probably not going to get that experience that I think you need to build some sort of a foundation for doing other stuff in the future, for doing cool stuff in the future. So that's what I would do now. If you want to just take a risk and go for it and start your own thing or whatever, like I think people should do that. And some people are obviously very successful at that. But
there's something, I can't remember who I was speaking to. I was speaking to Tony Greer about this the other day. It's like, he said, what did Goldman do for you? He said, it taught me how to be a professional.
Yeah.
And how to be around people 10 times smarter than you. Yeah. How to capture opportunity sets, how to think, and big companies have that. Big growing companies. When you're in a company that's growing and it's big, you're going to be surrounded by a shit ton of amazing people you can learn from. And it's much better to do that for 2 or 3 years and then go and do your own thing than it is just doing your own thing, I think. Now, some people get that from university. If you're blessed enough to be at Stanford or MIT or whatever, you're probably going to get some of that there, but most people don't.
Yeah, I'd agree. I definitely agree with that advice.
Where did you go to university?
I went to LSE.
Oh, nice.
Went to LSE, yeah. But I basically was one of those losers who wanted to be a trader from when I was like 16, from punching around on penny stocks back in the day. So I just pretty much like from day one was just like, I'm going to be a trader, I'm going to be a trader, I'm going to be a trader, and just went to the university to become a trader and ended up doing internships and whatnot.
Friend of mine's son's just done that. He's a friend of mine from Cayman, he's German. His son's now at LSE, and he got his first internship, 0.72. I'm like,
oh wow, that's pretty good. It's not a bad start. That's
pretty good. Yeah,
yeah, it's not a bad start at all.
Although he's got the same problem. He's like, well, what do you think? I said, I think you're going into a dying industry. You've got to get to AI as fast as you can, or you're fucked.
Yeah, I have to say, like the 10 years I was at Barclays, the quality of the interns that we got every year rapidly declined. Like we got amazing interns for the first, I mean, the year I joined, obviously Michael and I were amazing interns. And then every year it was like rapid decline. And not only just in terms of the quality of the people, but the universities they were coming from. And it was just, it was clear people didn't want to come into banking. It was just like so clear.
When I was at Goldman in, let's say, 97, 98, I don't know how I got in. I was a lateral hire and I went to a shitty university, but I happened to prove myself. And there was very few lateral hires, i.e. people who came from outside the firm. And I get all the CVs from these people, and there were stupid CVs. I mean, at that time, the investment banking industry was hiring more rocket scientists and nuclear scientists for derivatives than all of the rest of the industries added together outside of banking, right? We sucked in all of the talent because we paid 10 times as much as anything else. And it was a fast growing industry. Then Silicon Valley came along and it reversed. Yeah. And all of the sharp kids now go to Silicon Valley because the upside's bigger. And now we're seeing it with AI yet again. And so there's a real talent drain, and the whole banking industry has been shrinking essentially, or just moving towards machines as opposed to people.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think we've provided a very comprehensive answer on our thoughts there, despite both having worked at investment banks. So
also, I love this. We came not prepared, and we've just had a great conversation about all sorts of stuff. So we haven't got together recently, so it's always just
it has been a while. It has been a while, so it is always good to catch up. It's definitely always a pleasure. With that, I guess we should call it time. We're a little bit over time, but we're coming up to just 5:30. So. That was Rekt Vision, this week's special episode with Raoul. Before we go, quick question for you guys. Please let us know in the comments. How far do you expect the banana zone to take us? Let's hear some predictions for Bitcoin, ETH, SUI, Sol, you name it. Bitcoin dominance. Let us know what you think in the comments.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see whether, because I think my personal opinion is most people are scarred.
Yeah, I think so too.
They don't believe we can have nice things. That is my general assumption.
We're still in PTSD zone, basically.
We really are, I think. So it'd be interesting to see what people's targets are. So yeah, stick and below.
I know we're in PTSD zone because I myself am doubting things at times. And that's where I know it's like, actually, why am I doubting this for no reason other than just like scars from the last few months? So I definitely agree. Yeah. All right, cool. And we'll be back next week. Next week will be our monthly AMA show exclusively on the Real Vision website. You can catch us live at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time and 4:30 p.m. British Summer Time. I hope everyone has a great weekend, and we'll see you guys next week.
Take care.